Natalie Brooks stood at the entrance of Sterling Enterprises, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her weathered briefcase. The towering building stretched 60 floors into the sky, all glass and steel and impossible dreams. She was 24 years old, fresh out of law school with honors that meant nothing to anyone here. The navy blazer she wore belonged to her roommate, and the shoes pinched her toes with every step. But Natalie had learned long ago that comfort was a luxury she could not afford. The morning sun reflected off the building's windows, nearly blinding her. She took a deep breath, smoothed down her blazer one more time, and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was massive, with marble floors so polished she could see her reflection. Expensive art hung on the walls, and a crystal chandelier sparkled overhead. Everything here screamed money, power, success, everything she was not. First day. First Judgment Day security guard gave her a visitor's badge after checking her credentials 3 times. As if he could not believe someone like her actually worked here. Natalie forced herself to smile and headed to the elevators. Inside, 3 men in tailored suits discussed golf handicaps and vacation homes in the Hamptons. They barely glanced at her, and when they did, their eyes were dismissive. The legal department was on the 45th floor. When the elevator doors opened, Natalie stepped into a world of hushed efficiency. Lawyers moved between offices with purposeful strides, their designer shoes clicking on hardwood floors. A receptionist with perfect makeup looked her up and down before pointing to a small cubicle in the corner. "That is your desk," the woman said without warmth. "Someone will be with you shortly." Natalie settled into the cramped space, surrounded by filing cabinets and the constant hum of a copy machine. Her desk was barely large enough for a computer and a small stack of papers. She did not care. She was here, and that was what mattered. The assignment that changed everything. Her supervisor. Richard Owens appeared an hour later. He was a thin man in his 50s with silver hair and an expression that suggested he had just tasted something sour. He dropped a massive folder on her desk with a thud. "Sterling Enterprises is acquiring Quantum Tech Industries for $4.2 billion, he said flatly. "This is the contract. You need to review every clause, every term, every comma. We have 2 weeks before the final signing, and the CEO wants no surprises." Natalie stared at the folder. It had to be 500 pages at least. "All of it?" she asked. "All of it," Richard confirmed. "You were hired because you graduated top of your class. Prove it was not a fluke." He walked away before she could respond. Natalie opened the folder and began to read. The language was dense, filled with legal terminology that would confuse most people, but not her. She had spent 3 years studying contract law, memorizing precedents, understanding the intricate dance of corporate agreements. This was her language, her territory, the hidden poison. For 3 days, Natalie barely left her desk. She brought sandwiches from home and ate while reading. She highlighted sections, made notes in the margins, cross-referenced clauses with state and federal regulations. The other analysts passed by her cubicle with curious glances, but never stopped to talk. She was the outsider, the charity case, who somehow ended up in their world. On the 4th day, she found it. Clause 47, subsection C, buried deep in the intellectual property section. At first glance, it seemed standard. It granted Quantum Tech certain rights to existing Sterling patents during the transition period. But as Natalie read it again, slowly, carefully, her blood ran cold. The clause was a trap. The wording was deliberately vague, designed to look innocent while concealing something dangerous. If Sterling Enterprises signed this contract, Quantum Tech would gain permanent access to their core technology patents. Not temporary, as the merger suggested. Permanent. They could license those patents to competitors. Create derivative products, essentially steal everything that made Sterling Enterprises valuable, and there was more. Another clause, seemingly unrelated, on page 312. It waived Sterling's right to challenge any patent disputes that arose from the merger. Combined with Clause 47, it was devastating. Natalie sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. This was not a merger. It was a corporate robbery disguised as a business deal. Courage. Cobra fear. She could report this to Richard Owens. Follow the chain of command. Let someone else deal with it. But Natalie had watched too many important decisions get lost in bureaucracy. She had seen her father lose his small business because he trusted the wrong people, signed the wrong papers. She would not let that happen here. The CEO's office was on the 60th floor. Natalie had never been there, never even seen Vincent Sterling except in company videos and news articles. He was 32 years old, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. He had built Sterling Enterprises from nothing, turning a small software company into a tech giant. People called him brilliant, ruthless, visionary. Natalie took the elevator to the top floor, her palms sweating. The executive suite was even more luxurious than she had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. And at the center of it all, behind a glass desk, sat Vincent Sterling. He was on the phone when she entered, gesturing with one hand while he talked. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. His dark hair was perfectly styled and his jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were intense, focused, the eyes of someone who never stopped thinking. His assistant tried to intercept Natalie, but she moved past her with determination. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I need to speak with you about the quantum tech merger." "It is urgent." Vincent looked up, surprise flickering across his face. He ended his call and studied her with those penetrating eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, not unkindly. "Natalie Brooks, contract analyst. I have been reviewing the merger documents, and I found something. Something that will destroy this company if you sign that contract." The moment of truth, Vincent. Sterling leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Behind Natalie, his assistant hovered nervously. The office was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. "You have 30 seconds to convince me you are not wasting my time," Vincent said. Natalie placed her annotated copy of the contract on his desk. Her hands were steady now. This was what she knew, what she had trained for. Clause 47, subsection C, combined with Clause 19 on page 312, she said. They are designed to look separate, but together they transfer permanent rights to your core patents while preventing you from legal recourse. Quantum Tech is not buying your company, Mr. Sterling. They are stealing it. Vincent Sterling's confident smile collapsed. Vincent Sterling stared at the contract pages spread across his desk. His jaw tightened as he read the clauses Natalie had marked. The confident smile that had been his trademark for years had vanished, replaced by something dangerous and cold. He picked up his phone and pressed a button. "Cancel all my meetings for the next 2 hours," he said. "Get Richard Owens up here immediately. And call an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. All senior executives, no exceptions." He looked at Natalie and she saw something shift in his eyes. No longer was she just another employee, another face in the crowd. She had his full attention now. "Sit down, Miss Brooks," he said, gesturing to the leather chair across from his desk. "Tell me everything you found." Natalie sat, her borrowed blazer suddenly feeling too tight. She had prepared for this moment without realizing it. For the next 20 minutes, she walked Vincent through every clause, every hidden trap, every carefully worded deception. She showed him how the lawyers at Quantum Tech had woven a web so intricate that most people would never see it until it was too late. Vincent listened without interrupting. He was not the kind of man who got angry loudly. Instead, he became quieter, more focused, like a predator calculating its next move. When Natalie finished, he stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city he had conquered through hard work and intelligence. $4.2 billion, he said softly. That is what I was about to hand them. Not just money. My entire company, everything I built. The weight of almost losing everything. Richard Owens arrived 15 minutes later, out of breath from rushing up to the 60th floor. His face went pale when he saw Natalie sitting in the CEO's office. "Mr. Sterling, I can explain," Richard began, but Vincent raised his hand. "Explain what? That you and your entire team missed a clause that would have bankrupted us? That a junior analyst found in 4 days what you could not find in 3 months?" Richard stammered, trying to form words. Vincent turned to Natalie. "Miss Brooks, you will present your findings to the board this afternoon. Prepare yourself. They will question everything you say. Some of them have already committed to this merger publicly. They will not want to hear that they were wrong." Natalie felt her stomach drop. She had never spoken to a board before, never been in a room with that much power and money. But she nodded. "I will be ready," she said. Facing the giants, the boardroom on the 60th floor was intimidating in its elegance. A long mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs that probably cost more than her student loans. 12 board members filed in. Men and women in expensive suits, with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Natalie stood at the front of the room with her marked-up contract and a simple presentation she had thrown together in 2 hours. Her heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her face calm. She had learned long ago not to show weakness. Vincent sat at the head of the table, his expression neutral. He introduced her briefly, then gestured for her to begin. "Ladies and gentlemen," Natalie started, her voice steady. "The quantum tech merger is currently written will result in the complete dissolution of Sterling Enterprises within 18 months. I can prove it." One of the board members, a heavy-set man with white hair, laughed. "This is absurd. Our legal team has reviewed this contract for months. You expect us to believe a junior analyst found something they missed?" "I expect you to look at the evidence," Natalie replied calmly. She pulled up the first slide. Clause 47, subsection C. Please read it carefully. She walked them through it, step by step, showing how the language seemed innocent but was actually poison. Some board members leaned forward, interested. Others crossed their arms, defensive. But slowly, as the evidence mounted, the room grew quiet. The truth comes to light. A woman with sharp features and sharper eyes spoke up. Her name was Patricia Coleman, and she was the company's chief financial officer. "If what you are saying is true," Patricia said slowly, "then Quantum Tech has been planning this from the beginning. This was never a legitimate merger. It was corporate espionage dressed up as a business deal." "Exactly," Natalie confirmed. "And there is more. If you look at the payment schedule, you will see that Sterling Enterprises takes on all the debt from Quantum's failing divisions. You absorb their losses while they take your assets. In 2 years, they walk away rich, and you are left with nothing." The room erupted. Board members talked over each other, some demanding to know how this had happened, others already planning legal action. Vincent sat silently through it all, watching Natalie with an expression she could not quite read. When the noise died down, he spoke. "I want a complete investigation into Quantum Tech's CEO and legal team. I want to know who knew about this and when. And I want our merger canceled immediately. We will not do business with thieves." He looked at Natalie. "Miss Brooks, you just saved this company. I do not say that lightly. When a billionaire says thank you meeting ended in chaos, board members rushed out to make phone calls, to contact lawyers, to begin the process of extracting Sterling Enterprises from the merger. Natalie stood alone at the front of the room, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept her going was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. Vincent approached her, and for the first time, she saw him smile. Not the confident, practiced smile he showed the world, but something real and warm. "Walk with me," he said. They went to his office, and he poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal pitcher. He handed her one and sat on the edge of his desk rather than behind it, a gesture that felt surprisingly informal. "Tell me about yourself," he said. "The real story, not what is on your resume," Natalie hesitated. She was not used to talking about herself, especially not to billionaires, but something in his eyes made her trust him. "I grew up in a small town," she said. "My father owned a hardware store. When I was 16, he signed a contract with a supplier without reading it carefully. It had hidden fees and penalties. Within a year, we lost everything. Our store, our house, our savings. I watched my father break because he trusted the wrong people." She took a sip of water. "I went to law school on scholarships and student loans. I studied contract law because I never wanted to see someone lose everything again, because they did not understand the fine print. I wanted to be the person who could see the traps before they closed. Vincent was quiet for a moment. I built this company from nothing, he finally said. I worked 18-hour days for 10 years. I sacrificed relationships, health, everything. And I almost lost it all because I trusted my team to do their jobs. Because I was too busy to read the fine print myself. He looked at her, really looked at her. You did not have to bring this to me directly. You could have gone through channels, protected yourself. But you walked into my office and told me the truth, even though you risked everything. That takes courage. The beginning of something unexpected. Natalie felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. This was Vincent Sterling, one of the most powerful men in the country. He should not be looking at her like she was someone important, someone worth knowing. I just did my job, she said quietly. No, Vincent replied. You did much more than that. And I want you to continue doing it. Starting tomorrow, you are my personal contract advisor. You report directly to me. Your salary is tripled, and you get an office on this floor. Natalie's eyes widened. Mr. Sterling, I appreciate the offer, but I have only been here for days. Other people have more experience and deserve that position more than I do. Gazinitz did not save my company, Vincent said. You did. And please, call me Vincent. We are going to be working closely together. The way he said it, the way he looked at her, made Natalie's heart skip a beat. This was not just about business anymore. Something had shifted between them in that boardroom in this conversation. Something neither of them had expected. As Natalie left his office that evening, her borrowed blazer feeling different somehow, she realized her life had just changed forever. She had come to Sterling Enterprises looking for a job. Instead, she had found something much more dangerous. She had caught the attention of Vincent Sterling. 3 weeks had passed since Natalie exposed the quantum tech deception. Her new office was smaller than Vincent's, but still felt like a palace compared to her old cubicle. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, and her desk was real wood, not cheap laminate. But the best part was the work itself. She was helping Vincent renegotiate the merger with better terms. Terms that protected Sterling Enterprises while still allowing growth. They worked together almost every evening. Vincent would order dinner from expensive restaurants. They would sit in his office reviewing contracts and discussing strategy. Natalie learned that beneath the billionaire exterior was a man who loved terrible jokes and could, quote, entire movies from memory. Vincent discovered that Natalie had never been to half the places he considered normal, like the opera or five-star restaurants. One night, as they reviewed a particularly complex clause, Vincent leaned back in his chair and watched her work. Natalie felt his gaze and looked up, a question in her eyes. She asked, You bite your lip when you concentrate, he said with a small smile. And you tap your pen exactly 3 times before you write something important. Natalie felt heat rise to her cheeks. She had not realized he was paying such close attention to her. You do this thing with your tie, she said softly. When you are stressed, you loosen it just a little. And you drink your coffee cold because you forget about it while you work. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Vincent stood and walked to the window, his hands in his pockets. I have been thinking, he said. About what you told me, about your father and the hardware store. Natalie joined him at the window. The city lights sparkled below them like fallen stars. It taught me to be careful, she said. To trust, but verify. To never assume people have good intentions just because they smile and shake your hand. Vincent nodded slowly. I grew up with nothing too, he said, his voice quiet. My mother cleaned office buildings at night. I would do my homework in empty conference rooms while she vacuumed. I built this company because I never wanted to feel powerless again. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that having money and power does not mean you have people who care about you. The woman who saw his heart in Natalie turned to face him fully. In the dim light of the office, Vincent looked different. Not like a billionaire CEO, but like a man who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders and was tired of carrying it alone. Have people who care about you, she said, gently. I have employees who want bonuses and board, members who want profits, Vincent replied. I have business partners who smile until they find a better deal. but someone who cares about me, not what I can do for them. That is rare. He looked at her, and Natalie saw a vulnerability in his eyes that she had never seen before. You walked into my office and told me the truth, even though it could have cost you your job. You did not want anything from me except to do what was right. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Natalie felt her heart racing. They were standing too close now, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. Maybe your world has been looking in the wrong places, she whispered. Vincent reached out slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted. But Natalie stayed still as his hand gently touched her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. I think my world just got a lot better, he said softly. When jealousy strikes the next morning, everything changed. News of Natalie's promotion had spread through the office like wildfire. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Some people were genuinely happy for her success, but others were not so kind. Jennifer Park, a senior analyst who had been with the company for 5 years, made her displeasure known during a morning meeting. This must be nice, Jennifer said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Working your way to the top so quickly. I wonder what special skills you used. The implication was clear and cruel. Several people gasped, while others looked away uncomfortably. Natalie felt her face burn with anger and humiliation. But before she could respond, Vincent walked into the room. Miss Park, he said, his voice cold as ice. My office. Now. Jennifer's confident expression crumbled. She followed Vincent out, and the room erupted in hushed whispers. Natalie excused herself and went to the bathroom, her hands shaking. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Was this what her life would be like now? People, assuming she had taken shortcuts, that she had not earned her position through hard work and talent. A knock on the bathroom door startled her. Natalie? It was Vincent's voice. Are you okay? She opened the door. Vincent stood in the hallway, concern etched on his face. Jennifer has been terminated, he said. That kind of behavior is not tolerated at Sterling Enterprises. Natalie shook her head. You did not have to fire her because of me? Now people will think I am even more privileged, that I can get anyone fired if they upset me. Vincent stepped closer. I fired her because she created a hostile work environment. I would have done the same for any employee. But I will not lie and say it did not affect me more, because it was about you. The grand gesture 2 days later, Vincent called a company-wide meeting. All employees gathered in the main auditorium, curious about the announcement. Rumors had been flying since Jennifer's termination. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. Vincent stood on the stage, commanding and confident. Natalie sat in the back, trying to be invisible. I want to address the gossip that has been circulating, Vincent began. 3 weeks ago, this company was hours away from signing a merger that would have destroyed us. One person saw the danger and had the courage to bring it directly to my attention. That person was Natalie Brooks. He gestured to the screen behind him, where documents appeared showing the clauses Natalie had discovered. Miss Brooks saved Sterling Enterprises for $0.2 billion and protected thousands of jobs. She did this not because she wanted recognition or promotion, but because it was the right thing to do. Her promotion was earned through exceptional skill and dedication. Anyone who suggests otherwise can discuss their concerns with HR before they pack their belongings. Vincent's message was clear. Protect Natalie or leave. Furthermore, Vincent continued, I want everyone to know that Miss Brooks and I have developed a close working relationship based on mutual respect and admiration. In the coming weeks, that relationship may become more than professional. I am telling you this now because I believe in transparency, and because I refuse to hide something that makes me happy just to satisfy office politics. Natalie's eyes widened. Was he really doing this? Announcing to the entire company that he had feelings for her? Vincent looked directly at her, his eyes warm. Life is too short to play games or hide the truth. Miss Brooks taught me that. Where love begins after the meeting, Natalie found Vincent waiting outside the auditorium. Employees passed by them, some smiling, others looking shocked. But for once, Natalie did not care what they thought. That was either very brave or very foolish, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Probably both, Vincent admitted. He held out his hand. Have dinner with me tonight? Not in my office with takeout and contracts. A real dinner, where we talk about anything except business. Natalie looked at his hand, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, she had been a nobody in a borrowed blazer. Now she was standing in the headquarters of one of the biggest companies in the world, with a brilliant, handsome billionaire asking her to dinner. But more than that, she was standing with a man who had shown her his real self. A man who valued honesty over convenience, who stood up for what was right even when it was difficult. A man who looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. She took his hand, as she said simply, as they walked out of Sterling Enterprises together. Natalie realized that sometimes the best contracts are not written on paper. Sometimes they are written in moments of courage, in late-night conversations. In the decision to trust someone with your heart, the quantum tech deal eventually closed with new terms that protected both companies fairly. But the real merger that mattered happened between two people who found each other in the most unexpected way. Natalie Brooks had come to Sterling Enterprises looking for a job. Instead, she found her future.